All right, welcome back to the senior seminar. This is week 12, class number 2. And today what we're going to talk about is putting your final paper together. So by now you've already handed in your synthesis draft. You've already received your peer reviews back from other students. So now it's time to put the final finishing touches on this paper so that you can put in the final fully realized product and make that contribution to the world of psychology. So thanks for coming here today and joining me on day 2 of the face-to-face shutdown portion of the senior seminar. So what's on the schedule for today? We're going to talk about putting that final paper together, everything that you need to put into this final paper, as well as the goal of what you're trying to shoot for, because we're going to aim high on this final product, trying to get something that is publication worthy, high quality, so that you can make that contribution and, importantly, contribute to your own success later on applying to grad school or applying to psychology jobs. So before we get to the final paper, though, just a few more things on presentations. So 2 classes ago, we were talking about questions and how to handle questions. Last class, we talked about presentation guidelines and sort of what are the ideas and what are the techniques and strategies that go into an effective presentation. What will you be graded on, if, for example, for your presentation? So today we're going to finish with final presentation guidelines, specifically what to wear. So even though we might not be doing this live and in person, we will be doing it online. So you do want to present yourself in a professional manner, and it is important just as a skill to learn. And we're going to talk about some of the nuances of how to present yourself and how to use clothing to communicate certain attributes. And then we're also going to have just some last minute thoughts, things on pronunciation. Some of these came up in the student presentations, and also things on enthusiasm, which is, again, a way of taking your presentation and going to the next level. And then finally, after we do that, we're going to talk about the final things you need to put to get your final paper, this final research project write-up, this 20-ish odd pages paper, finally put together so that you're ready to hand that in come the due date. Now, the draft for this is going to be due on April 6th. So you are going to have one more round of peer review. So you're going to hand in your final paper draft. It is going to get peer reviewed. You will then receive those peer reviews and have one last chance to fix and improve your final paper. So we're going to stick to that. Deadline of April 6th for your final paper. And again, that's all in service of getting to that high quality final product, which can be turned into a published article. So let's revisit our roadmap one more time. We started the semester with nothing. We're trying to end with a publication worthy article. And all along the line, we've been traveling down this path in terms of developing this and in terms of disseminating our knowledge in other ways. So today we're going to talk about the final paper draft. But we're also going to be mentioning things to do with the conference talk and things to do with the poster session. So both of those, we are scrambling to figure out exactly what the alternatives will be. Rest assured, we will still be having a conference talk. We will still be having a poster session. You will still be learning those skills, but we don't know what form that's going to take at the moment. I'm just still finalizing some ideas, but I will keep you up to date. But bear in mind that you should be working on putting your PowerPoint presentation together and thinking about what might go in there, especially now that you have your synthesis draft back and peer reviewed. And also the poster session we're going to be dealing in the next few classes is another thing to just keep on your radar. We're going to figure out how to deal with that, but as the time comes. But for right now, just know that you will be producing a poster, and I will do my best to make sure that we have a session to present it at. So in terms of final presentation guidelines, it's very important to communicate professionally when you go to a conference or when you're doing a presentation. And communication extends towards your clothing as well. Your clothing, what you wear, says a lot about you. But one of the interesting things about a conference presentation, when you're going to a conference, when you're going to these professional psychology meetings, there's a sort of sweet spot in terms of formal and casual that you want to hit at these meetings. And that contributes or communicates the best version of you. So it's almost what you want to do is you almost want to follow that age-old guideline of not dressing for the job that you have, but dressing for the job that you want. In psychology, you want to dress for the career stage that you want. So one kind of typical error that I find a lot of students make when they're going to their first conference presentation is they go too formal. So if I saw somebody like this at a professional conference, if I went to APA and I saw somebody in a full suit with a tie, if I went to APS and I saw somebody in a full suit with a tie, basically if I go to any psychology conference and I see somebody in a full suit and a tie, I know immediately that that is an undergrad student, probably at their first conference, because that's a little too overdressed. That's a little too much. So they didn't get the guidance that, their supervisor probably should have given them. They erred on the side of going too formal. And this just communicates to your audience that this is probably your first time around, and you're not as experienced, you're not as perhaps competent a researcher. Now, whether or not that's true, that's what's communicated. So be sure that you don't go to this extreme in terms of the formal, casual continuum. Now, on the other hand, I have gone to conferences and seen people dressed like this, and I knew immediately that they were undergraduate students, probably at their first conference. To the other extreme, I have gone to conferences and seen people dressed like this. Now, if you ever see somebody dressed like this at a conference, I would highly recommend go up and talk to them, because they are probably a experienced researcher with $1 million grant, and they have earned the right to dress like this at a conference. So until we do that level of work, until we attain that level of the multi-million-dollar grants and the textbooks and classic articles being published, we haven't earned this at a conference yet. And if you wear this to a conference, you will come across as disrespectful unless you have that reputation to back you up. So we can't go that casual either. So we need to find that sort of balance between the two. And the best sort of area to hit for, especially at your, if you're an undergraduate student going to your first conference, is to kind of aim for looking like a graduate student. And graduate students typically, when they go to these conferences, dress business casual. So what you want to do is you want to kind of hit that sweet spot, not a full suit, not too casual. Times have changed in terms of what business casual means, but in general, I would suggest for men, and this is also what I'll be looking for in your presentations, for men, no jeans. This is just a kind of hard rule. You can wear casual pants, but jeans sort of communicate a little bit too casual, especially if you're at this stage where you don't have a lot of research experience. Also, no running shoes. If you're gonna wear a shirt, please wear a shirt. Do wear a shirt, but make it a shirt with a collar. You don't need the tie, but a nice shirt with a collar. No full-on suits. No matching suits with the vest and the petticoat and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, not too much skin. And for men, there are different gender biases in terms of how much skin is acceptable. For men, it's almost no skin. You do not have a shirt with a low cut or a deep cut neck. You cannot don't show up in shorts, wear pants, for your clothing. So do not show very much skin if you're a male. It's unfair, I know, but that's just the way that it is, and that's what you want to communicate. These days, in terms of the jeans and the running shoes, you can get the sort of fashion requirements or the fashion zeitgeist has changed. So very nicely tailored jeans, very stylish, fashion sneakers are becoming more okay. But I would also, again, just err on the side of caution. So no jeans, no running shoes. So especially for this, maybe your first kind of conference style presentation, this is what I would recommend, this sort of breakdown for the males. Now, on the other hand, for females, also, you're looking for that business casual type look. And for females, there's a few more options. So for females, once again, no jeans and no running shoes. So that's kind of your classic things to avoid across genders. You can wear shirts without collars, as are pictured here. That's not a sort of stigma that is associated with women's clothing. However, also do not show too much skin. Now, that does not mean that you need to show as little skin as males do, but kind of use your own judgment. You don't want to come across and project the wrong idea. You don't want to come across and project unprofessionalism. What you want to do is you want to come across and project somebody that is competent, somebody that is well respected, well known. And you can check the psychology literature on this. It's not necessarily fair, and it's not something that I agree with. But as more skin is exposed, perceived competence goes down. So make sure that you're not stacking the deck against yourself. You want people, again, to take a look at you and you communicate to them, look, I'm a researcher. I'm serious. I know what I'm doing. Come talk to me. It's going to be a rewarding experience. So use your clothing strategically. And again, this is what I'll be looking for in your conference presentation for this particular class. All right, and so if you need ideas, or if you're still kind of wondering what is kind of the sweet spot that you want to hit, some of the best kind of websites for this that I found, one of them is Banana Republic. So I'm not at all saying I don't endorse Banana Republic. I'm not at all saying you have to shop at Banana Republic. But that's the kind of look that they're going for. So stay away from their full suits. I know on this site here, on this image here, it has the full suits. But just kind of, shirts with a collar, a nice non-jeans. You can wear a blazer. Feel free to wear a blazer if that's what you would like to wear. But make sure that it's with a shirt with a collar. You can wear colored pants. You can definitely express yourself. But again, jeans just sends that wrong message, especially at this early stage in your career. And same for the female students. Go to Banana Republic. You can check out their business casual. Any of these looks would be acceptable and would communicate that idea of professionalism, that idea of competence. So you do have a lot of freedom within your own style to kind of express yourself, but follow those guidelines. Make sure that you express that idea that coming to you at that conference, listening to what you say is a good idea. And we do get judged by our first appearances. So let's make sure that everything is working together for us at a conference. All right, so that's that's my guidelines for what you want to wear. A couple of last little things here in terms of final presentation guidelines. One thing that I want to emphasize is pronunciation. So pronunciation, again, you might think, it's not that important a deal. It's not that, people are going to know what I'm talking about. And it's true, they will. However, it once again just communicates that idea that you might not know what you're talking about. So when you're presenting to somebody at a conference, when you're doing a poster presentation or a conference presentation, these people are investing their time in you. And the last thing that they want is any signs that you might not know what you're talking about. And the more signs that they get, the less likely they are to listen to you. The less likely they are to listen to you, the less impact your research is going to have. So we, again, want to maximize that impact. So let's make sure that we have our pronunciation down. So if you're doing a presentation on lizards, you might know everything there is to know about chameleons, except how to pronounce chameleon. And if you go up on stage and start saying chameleon, and this chameleon over here, and look at the colors of this chameleon. Oh, and the natural habitat of this chameleon is fading away. People are going to know exactly that you mean chameleon. All right, so don't get me wrong. They will follow you. They will understand what you mean, but they will put it in their minds and basically make that decision that you don't know anything about chameleons, right? That you are not the chameleon expert that they thought you might be. So this is just an extreme example. You might have examples like this in your own work. So if you come across a term that you're not sure how to pronounce. So I have seen this in a couple of presentations where students will walk up there and they'll be like, well, this is either chameleon or chameleon. I'm not really sure. Let's say this. Don't do that. Make sure that if you're not sure how to pronounce something, you can just go to Google and see what the pronunciation is like. So you can just find these. You can find these links. Oh my gosh, that didn't really work very well. I guess here we go. You can find these links and it'll tell you how to pronounce these different words in different languages. Well, different dialects.
Chameleon.
All right, so if you are wondering, how do I pronounce chameleon? Is it chameleon? Is it chameleon? Go to the Cambridge Dictionary. Just click on the information. You can also go to Google. They have a pretty good system as well, and just figure it out.
Chameleon.
Oh, it's chameleon.
Chameleon.
There we go. That's how you say it. So make sure that you're taking care of that, because you definitely don't want to communicate incompetence. You want to communicate that you know what you're talking about, and that's what pronunciation does. So it seems like a small thing. It can have a huge impact. And then the final thing I want to talk about is enthusiasm. So one of the things that you're trying to do with your presentations is you're trying to have an impact, and you're trying to get people on board, and you're trying to get people convinced. And one thing that I'll say more than often, all the time works, is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is contagious. And if you're excited about something, other people are going to be excited about something. And if you're telling them, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I found, other people are going to sit there going, oh my goodness, what did you find? And if you said, oh, look at this super important, implication, people are going to say, tell me about this super important implication. So have that enthusiasm. I would recommend go overboard. Go beyond what you're sort of comfortable with, because when you first start presenting, it feels weird, right? So just imagine, look at the next kind of examples. Let's say that you were trying to get somebody's attention and you walked up on stage and you said, you know what, we did the research, and guess what? We've got big, exciting news. We can't hold it anymore. Let's take a look at the data. Wow, look at that, right? Everybody's going to fall asleep. And you could have the most important data in the world. You could have data that is going to change the world. But that audience is not going to be the people that are going to tell the world about it. That audience is going to sit there going, well, this person doesn't think this data is very good. This person doesn't think these findings are very good. So I don't think they're good either, right? It's just the way that communication works. On the other hand, if you pop up a slide and you're like, oh my goodness, we've got big, exciting news. And we just can't hold it anymore. Look at this data. Look at it. Oh my goodness. Can you believe we found this? That is the kind of over-the-top presentation that might feel silly. It might feel a little bit awkward, but it works. It's effective. So when you're doing your presentation, get excited about certain parts of it and communicate that excitement. Tell the audience when things are surprising. Tell the audience when, and then we looked into it. I couldn't believe it. Look what we found. Tell the audience when something is important. When you say things like, and then, came the result, and oh my goodness, like this right here, this is important. This is what you got to pay attention to. And that kind of enthusiasm for your subject will have people stand up or sit up and pay attention, because all of a sudden they'll say to themselves, this person's excited, so I'm going to be excited. So try that. Try in your presentations to maintain a level of kind of interest and energy, and then pump it up a few times. Pump it up in a few places where you get excited about the next thing you're going to tell them, and you just can't believe the next thing that you're going to tell them, and you were shocked. Like, I couldn't believe that this happened. Look at this conclusion. Look how counterintuitive this is. And then hit home the importance. This is going to have vast implications, for the world. This is going to change the way that we perceive these individuals. This is going to change healthcare for firefighters and just impact the lives of so many people, right? Like, hit it that hard, because again, you're, presenting to an audience. They might be tired. They might be bored. They might be in the wrong room. That's happened occasionally at a conference. You want to make sure that you maximize your impact. Go after them. Pick 3 points in your presentation to just amp up that enthusiasm, and just watch your audience just kind of jump up and take interest. That's what you want, because we're trying to go for maximum effectiveness. So when you're practicing your presentations, try to go bigger. Just try it a few times to go a little over the top, go a little bit bigger. Practice that sort of like enthusiasm muscle, so that when you need it, you can turn it on and kind of really hit those points home. Because again, we're looking for the most impact. We want people to walk out of that room, walk out of that presentation and go, wow, that was a good presentation. I'm going to tell everybody about this. People need to know about this research, versus, well, I guess it was okay. I'm not angry I came, but whatever. Let's go to the next one, right? You want the first reaction, and that comes from enthusiasm. All right, so those are the final thoughts on the presentation. Definitely make sure your clothing is on point. Definitely make sure your pronunciations are on point, and then also ramp up that enthusiasm. Let's make sure that people are engaged in our presentations so that they'll go and spread the word and tell other people, and we can help as many people as possible with the important work that we're doing. All right, so on that note, we are going to now turn to putting the final paper together. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to outline every single part of your paper, every single piece that needs to go into that final single document, and then just give you details about what those pieces entail. So you have about 90% of the paper written. If you have finished your synthesis draft, you have about 90% of the things that are going into your final paper already done. Definitely use the peer reviews that were given to you to modify your draft, and then add these final missing pieces so that you have a complete article. So the article structure that we are going to, one moment, there we go. So the article structure that we're going to work with, it starts off with your title page. So your title is going to have a maximum of 16 words. Everything is in APA style. Everything is in APA manuscript style. So go remember what you learned in P457 and other APA writing courses. So you're going to have, check your APA manual for the sample papers, but it's all going to have a title page that has your title, maximum 16 words. And also on your title page, you are going to want to have author information. And then on the next page, you're going to have your abstract with keywords. Following that, you're going to have all your text with in-text citations that are APA style. So following your keywords, on the next page, you're going to have your introduction, followed by your perception section, followed by your diversity section, followed by your synthesis section. So you're going to have all that text with all the citations, and that's all going to be in APA style. In the text, you're going to include figures that are going to have numbered captions. So if you have figures, you don't have to. That's optional. But if it helps your paper, if it proves a point or makes it easier to understand, or if it just looks good, as long as it serves a purpose in the paper, have images, pictures in there that are numbered and captioned according to APA style. When you hand in your paper, I'm also going to ask you to upload the images in a separate high resolution file. So you're going to upload any of the JPEGs or PNG files, TIFF files, whatever it is, whatever your images are, you're going to upload that separately. And that's going to be for publishing your article in the final form. So those image uploads are what I'm going to use to put into the final form. Your draft is going to tell me where they go. Those image uploads are going to be what I actually finally do upload into the final form. You're going to want to include any acknowledgments, anybody that might have helped you along the way. This is optional, but it's a nice kind of thing to add for anybody that might have, librarian that you might have leaned on to help you on this, other faculty that you might have consulted to help you on this. And then we're also, because we're going for a publication, there are some things that we need to kind of take care of. And this is kind of business administrative wise. And these things include things like competing interests. So you're going to have a statement of competing interests, and we'll talk about what that is in a moment. And then after all this, you're going to have references. You're going to include an author bio, and I'll give you an example of that. And then that will be your completed full paper that you will hand in. So let's take a look at each of these bit by bit. So your title is going to be a maximum of 16 words. And what you want to do is in your title, you want to indicate your perception phenomenon and you want to indicate your diversity population. So these are the two things that your paper is really about. And your title should express both of those things. So something about the phenomenon, something about the diversity population. If you can include the final conclusion, the direction of the conclusion, for example, that's awesome. If you can't in the 16 words, at minimum, they need to know, your readers need to know from your title, what are the two things your paper is about? It's about sexual attraction and furries. It's about Alzheimer's disease and firefighters. Those two things have to be in there in your title. Maximum 16 words, pretty straightforward. Author information included on the title page, you're going to have your full name. And by your full name, I mean your full professional name. So you might not have published anything yet, So this is a great time to choose what your professional name is going to be. So if you have a middle name, this is basically if you have a middle name. If you have a middle name, do you want to include the middle name in its full form? Do you just want to include the initial? Or do you just want to skip your middle name and, just go with first and last? If you have a last name, perhaps that's hyphenated, do you want to go with the last name? Do you want to go with the first last name? Do you want to go with the full hyphenated last name? Any of those options are valid. Whatever you feel you want to do. However, it is to your benefit to choose one early on in your career and stick to that for the remainder of your career. Because when people search for your work after you become a successful psychologist and have made a lot of contributions, and people are like, well, let me see what else this individual has done, it just makes it much easier to search for you if you have a consistent professional name. So try one out, think about it, think how you want to be known in the professional psychology world, and have that as your name, as your author information in this paper. On that title page, you will also include your affiliation. So your affiliation is Indiana University South Bend. That is where you have done the work that has led to this publication. You'll also include your country, which is the USA. And then finally, you're going to want to include an institutional email. And this is the email that's associated with your affiliation. So this is going to be your IU email account. And what this is used for is this is used for any correspondence from people that read the article. So if they want to contact the author, if they want to contact you for clarification, if they want to contact you because they would like a copy of your article sometimes, this is the way that they get to contact you. And it's also, if the editor needs to contact you, this is how they will do that as well. So that all goes onto the title page. On the next page, you're going to have your abstract. Your abstract is where you're going to summarize the contents of the entire manuscript. And this is what we basically wrote for the URC presentation. So again, you can go 1 to 2 sentences for each section. You can actually kind of push that in this case. You can go to 3 sentences for each section, but it needs to cover all 4 sections. So it needs to have something about the introduction. Summarize the introduction. That is, what is the phenomenon we're looking at? Summarize the perception section. What are the perceptual processes that underlie this phenomenon? Summarize the diversity section. What is the characteristics of the special population we're looking at? And then summarize the synthesis section. Given the perception theories and the diversity population, this is what we can expect will occur. So you need a summary of all 4 sections. 1 to 2 sentences for each section will definitely keep you under any sort of limits in terms of how long an abstract can be. You can go to 3 sentences. I think we included that for the URC. So you can go to 3 sentences as well in this instance. All right, keywords. You're going to want to use about 5 to 6 keywords. These are special words that kind of identify the areas of psychology that you're working on. So you want to include about 5 or 6. They're separated by commas. And what I would recommend is borrow keywords from your references. So these are easy ways for people to search a particular research field. And they're also ways of communicating to your reader that you know the field that you're working in. So different areas have different words that they use, different terms that they use to refer to the work that they're doing. And sometimes it's difficult to know those ahead of time. So if you're working in memory, do people call that memory? Do people call that recall, recollection, reconstructive memory? What do they call it? Well, take a look at their papers. Their papers have keywords. Just borrow from their papers because those are the professional keywords that everybody else is using. So that's the keywords in the abstract and then keywords. That is on your second page. And then we start with your text, with your in-text citations that are in APA style. So this is where you have your brief introduction section, followed by your perception section, followed by your diversity section, followed by your synthesis section, and that is the majority text of your final paper. Make sure it's all in APA style. Make sure especially the in-text citations are in APA style. If you're using headings, APA style. Bone up on your APA style. Visit Owl Purdue resource online. If you have the manual left over from P457, you can use that as well. But check your APA style, make sure that it's on point. Numbers are reported the way numbers should be done. Citations are reported the way citations should be done. Indents, bold, italics, quotations, all that kind of stuff. Make sure that you are doing that correctly. In your article as well, you're going to have numbered captions for any figures. So these are the charts, the pictures, the cartoons that you're going to use to explain your paper, to help explain your ideas, to help illustrate your ideas, to make it easier for people to read about it. And these need to be referred to in the text. And they also, because we're trying to publish this in a public place, they need to include copyright information. And as I mentioned before, you need to use images that you have the license and the ability to use. So you can't just download something from the internet. You can't just copy an image from a article and use it in your own article. You need to have permission. And one of the easiest ways to get permission is to go to a place that is designed for use, that is designed for the use for publication and use by other individuals, such as Wiki Commons. So if you go to Wiki Commons, if you use their image databases, then you'll find the information. They will tell you what copyright information they have. They will tell you how to cite it. Put that in there and make sure that you have that information. So I will be looking for the copyright information for the images that you use. And then you can either put the figures in the text, or it's also acceptable just to put the captions as placeholders, indicating where the image file should go. So you don't have to put the images in the text, but definitely have those captions where figure 1 should go, where figure 2 should go, so I know where you intended for these images to go. And then if you put your images in the text, or even if you don't put your images in text, you will have to upload as separate files, separate image files, these figures that you've used. So all images that you use should be submitted as image files. Make sure that they're named with the figure number and that they've been captioned and numbered in the manuscript file. So name figure 1, the image for figure 1, name it figure 1. The image for figure 2, name it figure 2. And make sure that all of your figures that you upload have captions indicating where they go in your manuscript. So you can embed these files in the manuscript file, but make sure that you also upload them as a separate image file. All right, so that's the majority of kind of the technical scientific reporting where you're reporting the information. What we're going to talk about now is the things that you need to do in order for publication. And one of those is this idea of competing interests. So a competing interest is basically your way of mentioning whether or not you're directly gaining any financial way from the publication of this article. So are you going to benefit from stock price increases from the publication of this article? Were you paid by a corporation to do this research, in the publication of this article? Are you promoting a treatment that you yourself have a business that provides that treatment in this article? So you need to disclose that when you are publishing an article. And it's fine to have those competing interests, but you need to disclose them. You need to say, yes, I'm going to benefit financially from the publication of this article. So I'm going to assume that none of you are going to benefit financially from the publication of your articles. I'm going to assume that none of you have set up a business on the side during this semester based on the work that you did in your article. It would be great if you did. If you did, definitely, tell me in the competing interests. But for most of you, this is going to be your boilerplate statement, that the author has no competing interests to declare. So this is what I expect most of you to use. I need it in the paper. So after the text, I need this competing interest claim where it says the author has no competing interest to declare. Just for legal purposes, I need that in your paper. If you do have competing interests, then just let me know. The author declares the following competing interests and then list your businesses, list your associations, list anything that you could financially benefit from this article. All right, so after your competing interest claim, we have your references. This is going to be APA style references for all citations, including figures. So figures need references of their own. And again, if you go to Wiki Commons, it'll give you the information that you need for those references. And if you go to OWL Purdue APA resources, it'll give you how to reference a figure. And make sure that when it's relevant, all references from online sources have those URLs or relevant identifiers, those digital object identifiers, and last date of access. So if you used an online article, those articles are oftentimes updated. APA style will require that last date of access as well. So, if it was the day before the paper was due, put the day before the paper was due. Just make sure that you have that information in there for any of your online sources. All right, other things that go into the final paper, we are going to want to have an author bio. So an author bio is oftentimes used to describe the person that is doing the research. And it's a nice little way of giving a little bit of context and a little bit of a human element to who is doing this research. And also for people to promote their own interests and let the world know what they're all about. So this author bio is going to be a brief description of yourself. So an example from an author bio that I wrote. So, Igor Yurichevich holds a PhD in experimental psychology, University of Toronto. He's an associate professor at Indiana University, South Bend. His research interests include picture perception of both vision and touch. He is currently focused on the perception of metaphorical pictures and on developing a system for transmodal translations, processes to translate visual pictures into touch for the blind. Feel free to use that template. So, your name, is a graduate student at Indiana University, South Bend. Their research interests include, list what you're interested in. They are currently working on, list the project that you're doing and maybe some of the future things that you might be interested in as well. So definitely use this as a template. Write your little author bio. It's just a nice little touch to kind of give that human aspect to who is doing this work that the audience is reading. All right, continuing on, some more administrative stuff. So that is the last sort of thing that goes into your research paper. So that's what you're going to be handing in. But just so that you know, we have been working towards this published article this entire semester. So we've been doing the peer reviews and we've been doing the drafts so that eventually we have a high quality research paper that is good enough, high quality enough to be published in a journal. So because of this, I've set up I founded the Journal of Cognition and Diversity for this purpose specifically. And we have these Spotlight on Student, SOS issues, where the spotlight is on student research, and that's where I'm hoping your paper will end up. Because it's a published paper, because it's available in a public forum, we need to briefly discuss copyright. So for authors, and this is kind of boilerplate policies that you'll often find in journals, but you definitely want to check the copyright when you publish with a journal, because different journals will restrict on how well or how much of the copyright you yourself own. In the Journal of Cognition and Diversity, it's the least restrictive copyright format. So I'll just read it out to you here. So authors who publish with the Journal of Cognition and Diversity, hopefully that includes you, agree to the following terms. Authors retain copyright and grant the journal right of first publication with the work simultaneously licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license that allows others to share the work with an acknowledgement of the work's authorship in initial publication in this journal. What that means is that when you publish this, when you submit it to the Journal of Cognition and Diversity, you are granting me first publication rights. So you are agreeing that this was not published anywhere else prior to this, prior to it being submitted to me. However, that does not work. That does not mean that after publication, I own the copyrights. You still own the copyright to your work. So if you want to submit it to another area, if you want to try to submit it to a popular psychology magazine, if you want to submit it to the Associated Press, if you want to share it in any other venue, absolutely feel free. All that it needs is an acknowledgement that it was initially published, in the Journal of Cognition and Diversity. So you're free to do what you will with this article afterwards. I have no restrictions on that. Just make sure that it's acknowledged that it was first published in the Journal of Cognition and Diversity. All right, so other things, authors are able to enter into separate additional contractual agreements for the non-exclusive distribution of the journal's published version of the work, posted to an institutional repository or published it in a book with an acknowledgement of its initial publication in this journal. So again, you can publish this anywhere else you want to. You could publish it in the undergraduate research journal at IUSB. You could publish it in PsyChi's journals, for example. You can publish it anywhere with the understanding that it acknowledges initial publication in the initial journal. Authors are permitted and encouraged to post their work online in institutional repositories or on their websites, as it can lead to productive exchanges as well as earlier and greater citation of published work. So feel free to post this on your own website. Feel free to tweet about your article once it's published. Feel free to share it as much as you like. We're trying to get the word out there as much as possible. So make sure that you're taking advantage of any means, and feel free, absolutely free, to do that. So again, this is all to publish in the Journal of Cognition and Diversity. This is the journal's cover. So this was for issue number 1. That was for issue number 2. That was for issue number 3. I need to update this because we're currently going to be publishing issue number 7. So again, this is what we're trying to work for, publication in this particular journal. So put in the work, polish it up, take your peer reviews seriously, and then let's try to make this as best as we possibly can so that not only do we have an impact of the work that you've been doing, not only can we get it out there into the world, but also you can make yourself more competitive in terms of having a publication in your CV when you apply to grad school, having that publication when you apply to jobs. So let's try to maximize the effort that we put into this senior seminar so that we can all get the most out of it. So that is what I wanted to cover for today. So continue working on that paper. As I mentioned, the draft due date is still April 6th. So let's try to hit that deadline so you can get one last round of peer reviews so that we can increase the quality of these papers so that we can get them published in this Journal of Cognition and Diversity. Other than that, we are done for the day. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.